We define strategic analysis as an assessment of an organization's current competitive position and also the identification of future valuable competitive positions that the firm might occupy. And in particular, we want to be cognizant of how they might actually achieve them. How can they achieve these valuable competitive positions? There's a number of things we think about when doing strategic analysis. First, we do this from a generalist perspective. What I mean by this is that we integrate across the various business functions one might think of. It's not sufficient to just consider marketing or accounting or operations when looking at the organization. When looking at it from a strategy perspective, we need to integrate across these perspectives. In addition, we need to be foundational. And by this, I mean we need to go to first principles in understanding competition, markets, and business. So you'll see a number of the lectures that we will have in this series, economics brought to bear and how we understand strategy and the competition of firms. Second thing we want to think about with strategic analysis is this idea of strategic reasoning. We're going to talk a lot about competition and rivalry. It's not sufficient just to think about what a firm aspires to be in the market it looks to serve. We have to think about, well, how will others respond to that? Many people forget that Apple was not the pioneer in the digital music player market with the iPod. In fact, they were years later than the original entrants into that market. Rio, Dell Computer, even Microsoft, all had entries into the digital music player market there. It was only with the iPod that we then saw a reinvention of that space. So we need to think about competition, rivalry, and the dynamics that play over time as competitors jockey for position. And we need to do this in all of the complexity and ambiguity and uncertainty that we find in the real world. The third thing we need to think about is grounding our analysis in analytics and data. Strategy at its best is grounded on rigorous analysis and data that supports the arguments we make. It's not just merely lip service and hypotheses. We want to be grounded and bring data to bear to support any conclusions that we come to. Last but not least, we complete a strategic analysis by applying appropriate tools and frameworks. And one of the things we're going to talk about in this lecture series is the various tools and frameworks and introduce them as a way of conducting a broader strategic analysis. Now, an interesting and obvious question to follow up this one with is, well, who does this? Who does strategic analysis? The most obvious answer are those who actually formulate and implement strategy for the business. The CEO, the president of an organization. And clearly that is the case in someone who needs to be thinking strategically and performing a strategic analysis. This includes as well entrepreneurs, small business owners. All of these individuals need to be thinking about strategy and doing a strategic analysis. In some very large organizations, you might even see a position for VP for strategic planning. And also in large businesses where they have multiple business units, multiple businesses engaging in different markets, the general managers at those levels will also have to be thinking about strategy and strategic analysis. But we're not limited to that set. I would argue anyone who evaluates strategy also obviously needs to be cognizant of how to do a strategic analysis. This includes investors. How do you decide if one firm versus another is a good investment? You need to understand about their strategy and assess that strategy. Financial analysts, investment bankers, any number of people in the financial services sector need to understand and evaluate strategy. Finally, we want to think about those who recommend future strategic actions. The most obvious case is management consultants, but also any number of other stakeholders, closely held stakeholders, or even what we call secondary stakeholders, might find themselves in a position where they need to perform a strategic analysis. This might even include activists who want firms to act in one way or another, or government who is setting up a policy and is interested and wants to know how will firms likely strategically react to that policy. So at the end of the day, strategic analysis is really a tool, a framework, a way of approaching a decision making that involves a number of different entities and different potential constituencies.